Welcome back to TECHMIMIC, where you can simply view, imitate, replicate, and get on with your day. If there is a specific issue for which you would like to see a video, please leave a comment. It is good practice to use a regular user account for normal day-to-day use instead of the root account. But every now and then you would need to install a software package or make a configuration change, and you would need to run this as a root because your regular user account won't be allowed to do so. If you are not using a desktop manager like XFCE in this example, the easiest is just to log off and log in as the root user and then make the change, but this quickly gets inconvenient. Or you could open a second terminal session, log in as a root there and run the commands. This works with and without desktop managers. Once done, switch back to your original session. The most convenient way is to configure your regular user account in such a way that while you stay logged in and in the same session, you can elevate your permissions quickly and conveniently, then execute the required commands and continue as you were. This is done via the SU and SUDO commands, the topic of this video. An example, I want to install a package that is currently not available on my system, but this is not allowed under my regular user account. FreeBSD tells me I have insufficient privileges to install packages. Another example is when I want to edit a file that is owned by the root user and only readable as a normal user. It reads permission denied. In FreeBSD, the wheel group is a special user group that controls who can use SU to switch to the root user. SU stands for substitute user or switch user. Only users in the wheel group can use SU to gain root privileges. Adding a user to the wheel group is a way to grant that user elevated privileges without directly logging in as a root. The SU command allows you to switch to another user, typically the root user, from a regular user account. You can simply type SU and enter the root password to temporarily become root. But by default, for a regular user, this won't be possible. FreeBSD is even apologizing to me. Very well behaved indeed. Let's check my current group membership. I'm currently only in the group video. Take a note of your existing group memberships because you don't want to lose that. I need to add my user to the wheel group, and for that I need to be logged in as a root. So let's use the slightly inconvenient method of opening a second terminal session for hopefully the last time. To add my user account to the wheel group, type pw usermod, your username, -G, then any existing groups, wheel. If there are no existing groups, simply type pw usermod username -G wheel. My regular user account is now part of the wheel group. You can check this by typing groups username. Alternatively, instead of using the pw usermod command, you could directly edit the etc group file as root. Now that I am a member of the wheel group, SU will work. Instead of being apologetic, it is now going to ask for a password instead. For example, to install that package I was not allowed earlier, type SU and type the root password, and the whoami command confirms it. All bow before me, for I am root. You can see that the prompt changed from the $ character to the hash character, or £, or even octothorpe, a nice word for your next game of Scrabble, indicating I am now root. Also the username changed to root. I can now install the package or do everything I need to do as a root. Once done, exit as root by typing exit. For convenience, I could also run this in a separate terminal tab to avoid constantly switching back and forth in the same session. Useful when there is more to configure. Now I can simply switch between the tabs. That was how to configure SU to switch to the root account temporarily, until you exit back to the regular user. Another, maybe even more convenient way is to use the sudo superuser do command. Sudo is a command that allows a regular user to run a specific command as the root user. Unlike SU, which switches your user session entirely, sudo lets you run individual commands with root privileges but keeps you logged in as your regular user. Sudo is more granular and secure since you can control exactly what each user is allowed to do, and it typically requires the user's password rather than the root password. So in this way you could configure administrative tasks for another user without sharing the root password. The permissions are configured in the so-called sudoers file. Switch to the root user. First install the sudo package pkg install sudo. Just like before, make sure your user is a member of the real group, as earlier explained. Now type vi sudo and find the line on screen now. I said before that you can configure sudo so that a specific user can run specific commands. Because you most likely are the only user on this system that needs to run sudo for root tasks, most likely this, execute any command, is exactly what you want. So let's keep it simple and uncomment this line by removing the hash character. Delete or X on the keyboard and save the file. Now press escape, W, Q and hit enter. Log off and log in again to pick up the changes or simply restart the machine. Now as the regular user account, there is no need anymore to use the SU command. Simply place sudo as a prefix to any command that requires root privileges. For example, I can't remove that earlier package as a regular user, but by using the sudo method, you are now prompted for the user's password. Note that in this case we don't need the root password, like for the SU command, but just the password of the current user, as mentioned before. After the command is executed, I can continue working under the regular user account, and whenever root privileges are required, simply prefix with sudo. Once the password is typed once, it will be remembered for the duration of the current terminal session, so there is no need to retype it every time. For example, I can now use another sudo command, and it won't ask me for my password again until I close this session. That should be all you need. But now at the risk of confusing things, so just ignore this last bit of information if you are happy for now, but I should mention yet another alternative way of doing this. Instead of configuring that all the members of the real group can use sudo, you can specify that only a specific user can run all things root, or even down to the individual commands. You can be very granular with the permissions. Let's undo the earlier change with vi sudo. And add the line that is on your screen now. Save the file and remove the user from the real group, as this is not needed using this method. pw group mod wheel -d and then your username. Log off and log in again to pick up the changes or reboot the machine. Now you can use sudo without being a member of the real group. SU won't work anymore because of the removed wheel membership. With the information provided, you can also configure your FreeBSD system to use a combination of both SU and sudo. Play around with the various methods and just pick what works for you. That's it. Hope it helped, and if it did, please like the video and keep it up. Until next time, bye!